Hey, everybody. Randy Patterson here with Boomerosity. And I have a tremendous treat for you. If you're into the history of music at all, especially rock and roll and what inspired rock and roll, which are the blues, you're going to want to listen to this interview. It is with Marshall Chess, and he is the son of and nephew of the two co-founders of the legendary Chess Records. Yeah, the one that had Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Muddy Waters and on and on and on. And it's also the same Marshall Chess who helped form Rolling Stone Records. And Marshall has a ton of stories. And we got to hear, or I got to hear, a few of them in this interview. It's a lengthy interview, I'll warn you. So go get you something to drink, be comfortable, and listen, because basically I just let Marshall talk and I loved every second of it. And I hated that it had to end. I could have listened to him for hours. And you will too if you love the great music that was made back in the 60s and 70s and on. Marshall just has a tremendous amount of knowledge about what was behind the great music that was made back in the day and that influences even today. So please, if you would, while you're listening to this, just go ahead and like it because I know you're going to. If you're not already a subscriber, would you please go ahead and subscribe? Neither one of those things are going to cost you a dime, but it helps us out tremendously. And also, if you don't mind, share it with your friends who might appreciate an interview like this. I tell you what, Marshall's a treasure, a musical treasure, and you're going to want to hear everything he has to say. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to his channel. We talk about it. It's a Chess Records tribute on YouTube. I highly recommend it. There are over 500 videos on there, and that's going to increase. And it's just a lot of backstory to Chess Records and everything that was going on in those heady days. So without any further ado, here is my very fun interview with the great Marshall Chess. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerosity. Take care. Hello, Marshall.
Can you see me? Yeah, you can see me.
I can see you. Can you see me?
Perfect. Yeah.
All right.
We're right on. Let me just turn my volume up a little. Hold on.
Okay.
There you go. How's that? Talk to me. Say test.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, we're rocking. How you doing?
All right. I'm doing great. Where are you clicking in from? New York?
I live in the Catskill Mountains, 23 miles.
Wow.
Where the Woodstock Festival was.
Wow.
In the middle of the forest. It was always my dream. And I was a kid, I discovered, I'm sort of an hysterical person, you know, but I discovered the forest. Even when I was a little kid, we used to go to upstate Michigan and Wisconsin. Something I intuitively knew the forest calmed me. So after the Rolling Stones, I was visiting a guy up in Woodstock, a guy I'd met from the Rolling Stones, and I was reading the local newspaper. It was like just right now, 2 weeks after I ended my almost 7-year run with them. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I just wanted a break. And I saw an ad for this house where I'm sitting now, but it was like a line ink and drawing, like a drawing. And it had a bridge, and a stream. So I stayed in a Holiday Inn that night and I went there. And it was a house, it's 100 years old. It was built in the 20s, early 20s.
Wow.
By the guy, people who owned Lionel electric trains, which so was like a hit record. Every kid had an electric train. It was their country house, like 8-hour drive from New York. Old, you know, like a compound with a little waterfall and 2 streams, but it was dilapidated. And my road was like, you know, pickup trucks with shotguns on the back window, redneck kind of, you know. Now it's BMWs, you know, it's so weird.
Of course.
But that was in 1970, right after I did in 76, where that all ended. 77 is when I moved in here. So I bought this house and now I ended up living here. And then it took a long time to be permanent, but I ended up making this so I can walk. I walk out my door and I'm in the forest. I am in the forest, you know. I took a
Very
walk
cool.
minutes ago. Yeah. And I love it, you
Well,
know. Better
well,
than a tranquilizer or otherwise I'd be drinking or something, you know.
well, I'm almost like you are. I'm up in the Smoky Mountains, way down
Yeah.
south, as the Beatles
I
said.
know
So
this
I'm,
movie. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's just that close to heaven for both of us, right?
Yeah, there's
So
just certain. It's you know, I'm so glad that I feel the vibe of this, you know, because some people that visited me from New York City, I have a little cabin. They get nervous. Let's go to Woodstock. Let's go here. They can't relax, you know, with the quiet. They just have to keep doing. And I see how magical it is when you learn how to just sit back and let it happen, you know. So I like it. My wife was from New York City, but she's a school teacher. She was a local school teacher, you know, for 30 years. I raised my kids here, and
very cool.
you know, so it was good, you know. What can I
You
say?
you didn't go to the Woodstock Festival, did you?
Yes,
Because
I
I
did. I drove from
did you
Chicago.
really?
Yes, I did.
Whoa,
I went to
wow. Tell
many
me
festivals.
about
That
it.
was Come on, that was my era.
Well,
Six
I know, but
My hot era, first as a record producer, the beginning of rock and roll, 67. I did the Father and Sons, you know, with Paul Butterfield, Mike Bloomfield, Electric
right.
Mud, you know, with all those guys. I was hot, you know, and so I was part of that crowd, you know, one of the first young guys in the business. So
Wow.
yeah, I drove from Chicago with a carload. My first wife, she was my girlfriend then, and we got here. It was pouring rain. We had to park on the road. Uh, that night, I was shocked that it was pouring rain, and we walked into the grounds, and there was this field. Man, you know, this was a long time ago. Man, it was before the sexual revolution. There was all topless girls. They were all squirming in this like mud pit. It blew my mind. And that night, we stopped in this motel, and there was like, oh, everyone was on LSD, but it was like a band, but they were pretending. Each guy had his instrument. They were just standing there with this boombox playing and acting out like they were playing. I never got even close to the stage, never. Um,
Wow.
had I known then that I could have, you know, the people I knew, I could have probably gotten, you know, helicoptered in, but I didn't. You know, it was the beginning of that whole
Yeah.
thing, and yeah, so yeah, I went to the Atlanta Festival, California, all over the country. You know,
Wow.
I went, and you know, my job was, you know, what happened is when I came out of college, we noticed the Chess Records, the album was just becoming a thing, an item.
Right.
Black people did not really have record players in 33s. It was a white upper middle class. That's the first
Right.
branch. They got it, stereo and all that. So we noticed Muddy Waters, our premier blues artist. You know, the guy with
Hmm.
the Rolling Stones got their name. He
Hmm.
played a Newport Jazz Festival. It was a jazz
Hmm.
festival. Those were the first people that sort of accepted. And we recorded it live, and we put out an album, Muddy Waters Lives at Newport.
Hmm.
And it was right after I started working full time at Chess when it was out. And my uncle came to me and he said, "Man, something's real weird. We're getting all kinds of orders from that album from Boston. It was all these white kids who went to the festival, the Newport Jazz
Right.
Festival, and
Right.
saw Muddy Waters, and then bought the album. So we saw that, and we made a conscious decision that would be my job, would be to spread our music to this new white audience, because it was also the beginning of alternative radio, FM
Right.
radio. Before that, it was all AM. You know, you
Hmm.
had to get top 40 and push the button, riding around in my automobile, push the button for the station. But then FM, it was all these alternative stations. So I got involved with repackaging all the blues artists. In fact, there's a guy, is this like well-known blues writer, Don Wilcock. I don't know if you know him. He
I've
wrote,
heard of them.
yeah, he wrote about me in 1983. He's 80. Still, he lives not a couple of hours from here. So I had lunch with him, you know. I was getting my, and I was up in Albany getting my car serviced. So I had lunch with him. He said, you know, man, I want to write your thing. He said, I've checked your name is on over 100 records, but either produced by He said, it's amazing. And he said, you know that those albums you marketed for white people, because my next job was setting up Chess records for Europe. Remember, there was no Chess in Europe. My dad had made a deal with one label, Decca, and it was for the world. And they put out, no, they didn't know. It was like esoteric, and they didn't understand blues. It was like folk music or something to them. They didn't get it. They gave me that job. So I reorganized that, and I came up with an idea. I was only a young guy. First, he sent me, I've had a fabulous ride in my life, man. I mean, without,
yes, you have.
I was born into it. That's it, like born in the circus. And then it's become your life. It's true. That's how I look at it.
Yep.
And I had a father who was a workaholic, so I had to be at the place. I had to be there if I wanted to be around my dad, oldest son. And my dad was an immigrant. And all he wanted to do was, I cursed on your podcast, Can I say?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, the whole story is after I started working full time, no one ever told me where to sit, what I was going to do. And we're in a car wash, my dad and I said, yeah, I got the courage. Dad, what's my job? I've been here 6 months. I come to work every day. He said, motherfucker, your job's watching me. Like the whole immigrant thing, learn by. So I was his chauffeur, his everything. And little by little, he let me do stuff. And then when I told him I wanted to set up Europe, because I wanted to go to Europe, I had nothing in my mind about blues or that. I wanted to see Europe. Well, our publishing partner were the Benny Goodman's brothers, Harry and Gene Goodman. Benny Goodman was the original bass player of the Benny Goodman Trio with Gene Krupa, Lionel Hampton. And he was the guy that did the European publishing. And he was like a real hipster, smoked pot, from the 40s, that kind of thing. Loved to drink cognac. And he said, played the upright bass. And he said, my dad said, take Marshall around. So I went twice around the world with him. He was my teacher. And then my dad let me go. Wow. And I was, I'd say, 24 or 5 when I did that, man. I was young.
Wow.
And it was very few young people. And there was a new label. I ended the deal with London Decca, which turned out to be the Stones label years later. It's funny, the same guy, Edward Lewis, one of the inventors of radar, Anyway, I ended that deal. And I heard about this new company that was owned by the Grade brothers. They were guys that were carny, circus guys. But they ended up being Leslie and Lou, Sir Leslie, eventually. But at that time, they were like carnies, Jewish carnies in England. And they started a record label called Pi Records. And to outsmart the big majors, they used this whole thing of vans that carry the records instantly all over the country, right to shops. It was a whole new concept for England. Now, I come from we're an independent record label. We're part of, it was like, the majors and independents, there was always that battle, So I immediately was attracted to that. And the lawyer I knew was representing them, introduced me to the president, a guy named Louis Benjamin. It became Sir Louis. And I made my first deal alone with him to put Chess. And that night I realized I made a stupid deal. We were going to break even. I figured wrong. And the next day I told him, I said, I really screwed up. He said, oh, I'll change it for you. I said, no, let me suffer a year. I'll never make that mistake again. We became good friends. We decided to put all the Chess stuff out on a discount label called Marble Arch without the name Chess. Chuck Berry. This was really Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters, the key elements.
Right.
And then, so those were the albums. When Mick and Keith met each other on the underground, the subway in London, it was because Mick was holding 2 Chess Marble Arch records under his arm.
Wow.
He said, oh my God, I like the same music. Those were so I'm so connected. They knew that we all talked. Used to say, what a weird connection. So this guy, Don Wilcox, said, man, all those English groups that really made rock and roll, without those albums, that was their foundation. If you hadn't done that, they might have never heard 50 Muddy Waters cuts. It was hard for them to get it, So, I I didn't do it because I thought I'm smart and I thought of it. I wanted to go to Europe and look at the girls on Carnaby Street. You know, that's the truth. But I was into it. I was one of them. You know, I was one of that generation, and I was raised with all these artists, and they trusted me. And after I re-released all the blues albums, yeah, I had a million-seller single by a group called the Status Quo, Pictures of Matchstick Men. You know that record? It was a million seller. I bought that for 300 pounds from that guy at Pod Records. It was a flop. He let me look, any ones you want to buy for America? So I had this great relationship. And then I made deals with independent labels all over Europe. And you know what's so strange? I only got as far as Western Europe because no one in Poland or Russia. It was not. This was just France, Germany, Italy, Scandinavia. Right. It was a big blues market. Well, now I've started over the COVID, and I had back surgery. I'm laying around, and a good friend of mine who's the Chess Catalog. We started almost three and a half years ago, a YouTube channel called the Chess Records Tribute Channel. My main impetus was boredom, and I have 4 new grandchildren who I knew would never read a book, you know, by the time they're old enough. I said, let me get everything digitized, the history, my own family's legacy. This was a way to do it. And Richard said, let's build a YouTube channel, because he had done, when I met him, he had made the best box set of chess in the late 60s, right before I started with the Stones. He had run the catalog of England, Universal Records in England. And that's how we stayed friends all those years. So he was also bored with COVID and wanted to do a coffee table photo book of this chess artist that he knew because of all the box sets. So I said, yeah, I'll help you, but I'm laying on the couch. I can't even walk at that time. I just had surgery. So I helped him, and then he said, well, let's do a YouTube channel. I can sell my book, and he's a consultant. He said, maybe I can become a YouTube guy, you know? So we built this channel, which we just started promoting. That's why Mark helped me, because we spent all these years, 500 blues videos, 7 podcasts, folk tales of stories of like I'm telling you now. You know, I'm doing every week. I record every week. I do this. I want to document it while I'm around. I knew these people. There's not many left. I'm 83 in a few months. So I've been around, man. But so now we're promoting the channel, you know, and I'm getting a kick out of that. So let me shut this off. Sorry. Now we're promoting the channel, but what I wanted to say was just how FM radio in America spread the black blues to this white psychedelic pot smoking, sex, drugs, and rock and roll audience. The internet has brought the same music to everyone around the world. We like Chess put out the first Aretha Franklin album because we did her father's Reverend Seal Franklin. Her dad was a famous preacher for the first of the before TV gospels. We did 1,078,000 of his sermons. Wow. Over the years, because in the South, there was those people didn't know about preachers like that. Through mail, through 2 record shops, Ernie and Randy's, did mail order with big 50,000 watt radio stations. And over the years, we sold, it was only 78. So Aretha was 16. The same guy that managed her father managed Aretha. She was singing in the church. So her first album was 16 years old in church, a gospel recorded live. We put it out on Chess. So last year, my partner in the channel, Richard, said, what's going on? We were getting all these hits from Poland, because the internet is done like what FM radio did. It's spreading it worldwide. So there's a whole new market, I put out an album too during that boring period called New Moves, with like a remake, like those kind of records I like to make. And that the big hit is in Finland. Some guy in Finland, the blues newspaper channel, Finland, So I'm fascinated by that. But I see it was like AM radio did it for rock and roll before FM. FM radio did it for albums and that. And now the internet is making it global, for every kind of music. Yeah, so that's my.
Well, did you guys run into any problems for because I'm starting a new feature on my work. My website has everything I've done on it, over 500 interviews, but the
No,
YouTube channel.
I checked it out a little bit after I knew I was doing it. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Coming from you, that means a lot. So
No,
thank
I
you.
like guys like you are keeping my shit alive, man, and just fucking, but no, you're keeping it's. We need that, and you're
Yes.
taking advantage of what I'm telling you of this
Yeah.
internet and how it goes
Well,
global.
Well, then, for me, I want to start a feature. I've got some episodes recorded where, I just turned 65, so I'm a little bit behind you here on age, but I'm so nostalgic, right? And so, but for me, the problem is I want to play snippets of the music. And of course, YouTube kicks me off because of using music. So I'm in the process of trying to get right to use stuff. How did you clear that
We have
hurdle?
a
Because
hard
the content.
we find uncopyright things. He spends hours and hours finding.
Wow. Okay.
There's a lot of stuff
There-
that's not copywritten. Now, all those out of the 500 videos, they're not copywritten. They're people who made it. We mine the market. So even if someone does it on their telephone and then puts it online, he doesn't copyright it. But we mine all those.
okay.
As far as music goes, we're not earning any money from it. It's tricky. We haven't been talked to yet. But if
Yeah.
Universal comes to me, I'm going to say, this is to your benefit. You own the chess catalog.
Yeah.
Buy it. Buy our channel, take it. We'll
Yeah.
run it, I don't care, I
Yeah.
hope that happens. In the back of our mind, we would love them to eventually have it because it
Yeah.
only benefits them. They own the
That's right.
channel,
Well,
and they owe me because I don't know if do you know that they years ago they hid this. Their warehouse of all their classic labels burnt down because of poor storage and
right.
all
The masters,
of the
all
chess
those
masters.
masters.
They're gone, burnt up, and they hid that.
Jeez.
I would have sued them, but we'd sold it to them. So, but I mean, all the stuff, because I had done in the '80s, I did an album called The Great 28, which what I did was did Chuck Berry, because what you guys, you young guys like you don't realize those first albums. Let's say I had to put out a best of Chuck Berry album in 1970. Here's how I would do it. I'd go to the tape vault and I'd pull out 12 boxes of the single recordings of each single. I'd go into the tape machine and I would figure out sort of a rough sequence. And then I would go from that reel, I'd make a copy on a reel, right? And I'd eventually put all 12 on another tape, right? Then I'd edit that around, change the sequence, make another copy. So usually by the time the album came out, it was third or fourth generation, we call it. Copy after copy. Every time you make a copy, you lose sonic. You lose magic, man. Magic. Magic's in those sonic things. That's why live music is so special. So I got this idea. I'll make this album from each single box. I won't make copies. I'll take all 28 boxes to the mastering lab and go straight. And I did. And that album is still, you can buy it right now on Universal. It's called The Great 28 Chuck Berry. But the thing is what blew my mind. So I made all my first copies. That was the cassette era. So I'm driving, that's why I listen to music in the car a lot. I still do it to this day.
Same here.
80 CDs in my car, that I ride around, Anyway, so I'm listening, and what I heard was my father and my uncle, plus a lot of other people, but mostly my father and my uncle, producing these records in between the cuts. That's the historic shit that they lost. Unreal. So can you imagine when you're grown and you hear your father, how he was in his 20s, saying, fuck, talking, yelling at little Walter and stuff. I got goosebumps. It was thrilling, and I've used the few cuts that I copied off, I've used, on projects of mine. You hear my father saying, take 5, all that kind of stuff. I've used it, but not 1/10 of it. And not that. And so that historically is so horrible that even luckily that a lot of the great stuff has been digitized, so they didn't lose it completely, but they lost a lot. They lost a lot out of pure ignorance.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
not
I
only
just
chess records,
when
a
I
lot of
read that,
all their classics, you know.
yeah, I read that and I was like, they've got to be kidding. I
Yeah.
mean, that was unreal.
Unreal. And you know, we had at chess, we had a tape vault that was way better than anything they had. You know, in a concrete room. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it wasn't that modern. We didn't. There wasn't that fancy air conditioning and humidification then. But
Right.
then when I then the Cadillac ended up being owned by a hip hop label called All Platinum in New Jersey. That's how I got involved with that. You know, I was trying to buy it back. And I found out it was owned by this label, All Platinum. So when I went to buy it back, the guy said, I own the chess. You know, I owned it because of a lawsuit with Polygram, some record business bullshit. He had a million seller called Pillow Talk with his wife, and they didn't pay him. So he got the chess catalog. Says, what can I do to get this shit out? Can you help me? I said, if I can hire two people, I needed the money then. My wife was pregnant. This was back so it was 1981. I needed the money, really. That's the honest to truth. You know, I burnt it up with drugs after the Stones. I had to go through a whole process. You know, not of it was okay. Part of the price of being with the
With the
kings and queens
Stones.
of rock and roll. But anyway,
Right.
and if I had to relive it, I would anyway. So it's fine. It was great. But at that time, and so I got a job there. I hired two people. And I found the tapes that were laying empty boxes on the floor, taped, another person, horrible ghetto, baby, ghetto, totally ghetto style. So I straightened it out. And then I worked for him for a couple of years. And we put out about 13 or 14 albums, but then he started not paying anyone, not paying the artists, not paying everyone. Everyone was getting screwed. That was the problem. And he started not paying me. He was a real, gangster. I loved the guy, but he was a gangster. Like if he owed you at the end of the month 5,000, he would say, "Baby, I'm short. Let me give you two. I'll give you the rest next month." And then it would build up. So eventually it would be $40,000. And I said, okay, forget it. We're done with this. You're never going to pay me off. Give it to me in studio time. I want to go back into making records. By then I had become real tight. It was with the beginning of hip hop and rap music when it was still musicians playing it. And he had
Mhm.
this great house band. And because I'm drawn to musicians, so I hung out in this studio. I hung out with the musicians, and I got really close with the guy, the drummer, Keith LeBlanc was his name, probably the inventor of the hip hop beat, on all
Mhm.
those early Sugar Hill gangs. Um, but what this guy told me was, I said, can I buy this chest back? He said, if you'd have come here 6 months ago, I'd have kissed your so and so white ass. He said, but me and Sylvia got the biggest hit we ever had. They had Rapper's Delight. We've sold 1 million in the last 3 months, Rapper's Delight, which was the first crossover white rap record,
Right.
Sugar
Yeah.
Hill Gang. So he said, well, I just bought Sylvia a Rolls Royce. But what can I do to get you to work here? So I did it because I needed the money. And I put out those albums. I got the studio time. And he had put out an album, the speeches of Malcolm X. And I got this
Mm.
idea. Again, that's my kind of thing, to do a hip hop record, taking the speeches of Malcolm X from his record. We'll add the
Wow.
beat, electronic. So I actually bought one of the first drum machines ever. I took this guy, Keith, he went down to 48th Street, New York, where all the shops were, and I bought a DMX,
Mhm.
and we put
Mhm.
out this record. And so I was playing it. This Joe was like a gangster. He puts his arm around me and he says, "You made us a great record." I said, "Uh-oh." So that night I went back and I took my tapes. And the next morning I sold it to a label called Tommy Boy, a guy named Tom Silverman, who put it out. He gave it to the #1 rap disc jockey named Mr. Magic in New Jersey. And Joe and Sylvia were riding around in the Rolls Royce and they heard it on the radio
Oh,
and they got pissed. So they went. He was another guy that they paid off him, both everyone, They ran to the radio and they got it. The 12-inch it was called. And they ran and it remastered off it and made their version of my record. And then
oh
hired
man.
black PR people to stop the play. To stop the play. Not make it. But in the meantime, I sold it to Chris Blackwell, Island Records, and it became a hit only in the UK. And now it's a classic. Even now, it's called No Sellout, Malcolm X. But we had to become partners with Malcolm X's wife. So when I met her, she was a PR of this black college called Medgar Evers University. Me and Keith went there the first time to meet her to make this publishing deal. She said, "Yeah, I want you to know I do not like white people," right to my face. That was it. Now I'm telling you these stories because on our channel, this is season, I'm going to sell my channel now. These are what we call folk tales.
Right.
And I've got so many folk. This is a folk tale, a chess folk tale. And that's what we're drawing people to the channel with. And I record them every week. And the best one is Paul Simon writing a song for Etta James, recorded at the Sun Studios in Memphis. But you've got to go on the Chess Tribute channel to hear that story. But there's about 50 of these folk tales. So I got the idea. I read that remember Will Rogers, that guy from went around the country doing folk tales on stage. And no one in the music business does stories like these kind of stories. The Rolling Stones, I've got so many. So I decided that would be the gimmick of our channel once we got everything on, all these videos. So that's going to be our #1 section of these folk tales, stories like I just told you, and so many more inside stories, stories about the Rolling Stones chess records, crazy stuff, good stuff.
I think he was fired before you got with the Stones, because this guy I'm about to mention the name of, he passed away a year or two ago, maybe 3 years ago. But the Stones kind of, I think by default, silently was blamed for Altamont. Sam Cutler was his name. Did you deal with Sam?
Yes, I'd met Sam. I did.
Yeah.
That's why I started with the Stones 6 months after Altamont.
Wow.
The first meeting I had were with the Maisels brothers. They did the film.
Yeah.
That was the first meeting I had.
I think Sam went on to, didn't Sam go on to manage the Grateful Dead or road manager?
He was involved with the Grateful Dead. I met him a few times, but it was no more than, it wasn't any, it was just nothing deep or getting into it,
Yeah.
But, the Stones had a lot of Sam Cutlers around them. Oh my God. A closet full. So those are like what I call level C's, not even level B. I got to level A+. I was like the 9th Rolling Stone, because they got, they've never told me what to do. Every record was #1. It was a fabulous adventure, my time with them. Years.
I remember reading a while back, I guess it's been a couple years ago, where the guy, and I was wanting to ask you about this because I'll show you. I wear a pendant, 2 pendants, and one of them is the Stones logo.
That's from our company called Licks.
Yeah,
and I've got the 10. We had 10 sterling silver ones, and for each Rolling Stone, and I've got one framed in where I work, in my camp. That was the same one.
I know there was a thing written up a couple years ago about the artist that actually did. You were the one who made
there was
the
a big artist. John Pash. Yeah, Jonathan Pash. But the weird part is, I also produced 2 Rolling Stones films, The Cocksucker Blues and Lady and Gentlemen of the Rolling Stones, during that period. Right. So I get royalties. And I had to go. All of the Rolling Stones business, which I was part of setting it up, it runs out of Holland. All their companies are called NV. It's a way to eliminate English taxes. That's the real.
Well, I think U2 does the same thing.
Everyone. I mean, I think like at that time, Holland said, bring all your money into Holland, pay us 7%, and that's it. You're going to do what you want instead of 50 or at that time in England, it was 80, 90% you could pay. It was really outrageous. But it's so they have the offices in Amsterdam, and it's amazing when I went there, the amount of merchandising, because I had to go there to work on my film deal to make sure. And they pay, they're the most honest people. They've never, but the guys at the Stones have never been in these offices ever. For years and years.
That doesn't surprise me.
But it was beautiful, like an old brownstone building. But that was an interesting situation. Yeah, Sam Cutler. But the Stones is just, there's so many layers. It's so that is the reason. One of the reasons that I quit. You know, I was taking a lot of drugs and I was in bad shape, but that isn't the main reason. The main reason is because it's such a weird, special atmosphere that everyone only you get constantly sucked up to, but it's to get to them.
Right.
So at first you're Mr. Big Shot, the president of Rolling Stone, everyone, but it's all about getting to them, and eventually your ego, you see, it's all fake. It breaks through that it's not about you at all. You bullshitted yourself. And then I had to get out of there. I mean, that was part of the reason for the drugs. That's a problem after a while. Now, some
Yeah.
people, a lot of the people around them sell their souls to be around them. But I
Yeah.
wasn't one of that. I was not a groupie, man. I wasn't. I didn't look at it. They were like one of my artists.
Well, when you
mean,
agreed to use that logo, did you have any idea whatsoever that 50, 60 years later, that it would be still this
no,
iconic
I mean, well,
thing?
we okay. I'd say we had a smidgen of an inkling. I really believe that because, well, because that's why we started the company. We were just ahead of our time. I even had Rolling Stones beer and wine. I can remember yellow prototypes, yellow labels with the red tongue. We were ahead of ourselves. My dad just always tell me about me. He says, "Man, if you're ahead of yourself, it's the same as being behind yourself. You're too ahead of yourself." We were ahead of ourselves. We started that. We had watches, pins, that jewelry. I did it with a friend of mine, Licks, Craig Braun, who was the father of custom album covers. He did the zipper cover for the Stones, the banana,
Wow.
and he invented custom album covers. He was my good friend from Chicago, and he moved to New York, and so he came up with the idea. Let's do merchandising. Let's start this company. We called it Licks. We made those pins, but it didn't. There was no distribution. They weren't selling stuff. They weren't even selling catalogs. I mean, programs at concerts then. I had a guy, I found some New York guy that would brought his crew concert to concert, and then we split the cash. The Stones after each show. He told me, yeah. That was very early, my first tours with them. But but to finish that logo, so I go to London to that Amsterdam office. He says, "Let me show you something." And he pulls out, you could probably find this online or somewhere. It's called the Beatles Songbook. And it's got a picture of a Hindu goddess called Kali, Kali. And it's the tongue and lips. Her lips are the tongue and lips, but it's curled up.
Right.
It's the tongue and lips. This guy, he said, look, and they even had a book written. The Stones had because I was interviewed. They had a writer write a book. They have an actual book about the logo. They hired someone to write a whole book about it, how it was done, how it was formed. And that became, we had an inkling, My contribution was I landed in Amsterdam and they were playing in Rotterdam, which is about a 2-hour, an hour and 40-minute drive on a nice highway. I rented a car at the airport. On my way, I needed gas. And it was a Shell gas station. I worked at a Shell gas station as a kid. At 16, in America, there was the yellow Shell, right? A yellow picture of Shell underneath in red letters, SHELL, right? You remember that ever? See that?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
well, on that highway, no letters, just the Shell, because it's a Dutch company, Shell, and it was strong enough. Their logo was strong enough. It didn't need to be said. So that night, we had the logo, talked about the label and the logo. I came up with that. I told them the story I just told you. And I said, man, listen, we need a logo that has no writing on it, that just is recognizable. And then Charlie said, I know this artist. Charlie knew that guy from art school because Charlie had gone to art school. And Charlie said, and that's how that began. He started sending samples in. I have some drawings here. It was a pill on a tongue. We had all kinds of weird ones.
Wow.
We had the zipper cover. I tried to sell, that Rolling Stone sticky finger covers, that zipper. Plus I took it to Levi's in San Francisco. It was shot with Lee jeans, that cover. I went to Levi's and said, if you put an easel in every shop that sells Levi's, I'll reshoot this with Levi's with that red label on the back. And they said, yeah, let's do it. See, I was ready. That was my thing. 3 weeks later, we can't do the deal. Why? They decided not to do it because of Stone's lyrics and their sexuality and drugs. Yeah. So it was Lee jeans. Yeah. And then we had the where it unzipped. You were supposed to. First, we thought Nick wanted pubic hair, underneath it instead of jockey underwear. We had all those are all the folk tales that I'm going to be telling on that channel.
Right.
I want to tell them because no one else is going to tell them. And guys like you and everyone who likes the Rolling Stones and music are going to love these stories.
Oh yeah. Well, I saw that you're.
Then they'll get sucked in. Then they'll see there's 3 or 4 videos on there of the Stones playing with blues guys, with Muddy and people.
Yep.
Well,
you were talking on your podcast. You were talking to Andrew. Andrew Oldham, and that's somebody on my bucket list I want to talk to sometime.
Well, that's how one of my entrees in 1964. Of course, I told you I set chess up in Europe starting in 62. Right. In 64, so anyone with chess was a small company, like 8 or 10. There wasn't a lot of executives. It wasn't like the North, it was a funky, like a ghetto edge. But my uncle, we had those phones with buttons, like 4 lines to every office. My uncle, my phone, there's a guy with one of them foreign accents on the phone. Anyone with a foreign accent, because I set Europe up, I got transferred to. Right. So I picked it up. He said, my name is Andrew Oldham. I'm Marshall. He is very congenial. I'm, I manages the Rolling Stones. Oh, I knew the Rolling Stones, obviously, Yeah, they were one of my favorite. They were my favorite rock band. It worked so perfectly. They really were, I just love Between the Buttons, all those, I had Satanic Madness. I used to carry around a record player with those albums. So anyway, we're doing our second tour. Can we come to Chicago and record at your studios? Well, we never let outside people record. So I said, I got to get back to you. Give me your number. Blah, blah, blah. I go talk to my father and uncle. Look, they've done our songs already, blues songs. They've done some. We can make money publishing. Let me tell them yes. So yeah, okay, do it, man. My father and uncle, they always gave me head, man. Go, man, do your thing. Learn from mistakes. You'll know not. It was beautiful. Do it. So I called Andrew back. I said, do it, man. And they came to Chicago in 1964 on their tour. There were already groupies because they came in the back door, and there were people that sprayed. Rolling Stones sprayed. They already had groupies then. And they spent 3 days in Chicago recording. They were actually constructed satisfaction. I watched them put it together. They finished it in L.A. as the tour went on. They and were the first guys ever started drinking hard liquor out of the bottle, straight whiskey. No, the only one I really talked to and became close with in 64 was Brian Jones. The Rolling Stones died for some reason. So he was the one that I took on the tour of the building into my father and uncle's office. They shared an office. I went into the shipping room and I gave them all like 10 albums, blues albums, piles of free, boxes of albums. And Willie Dixon, the famous blues songwriter, they all buy with songs to show them. We wanted to make money, We were in the record business. We were making art. That became later when other people said it was art. Us, it was a business, We needed, and just wanted hits. That's how they ate off of hits. Blues records, those early records, only not until 55, till Chuck Berry was ever big sales. A blues hit could be 20,000, and it was 2 cents a record royalty. That's why blues artists wanted to be on chess. We got it on the radio because we used payola. That was the big thing that made the independent record business. Anyone could get record play. You pay for the play. So they knew in Chicago, Muddy, if we recorded Muddy on a Monday and got it to the radio station on a Tuesday with a $50 bill, he could make $500 on Friday in a club. That's how they generated their money. You
Right.
know, it's those
Wow.
people that came to the club. There weren't record shops in the black neighborhood before civil rights. They'd buy it in barber shops and convenience stores. Young people
Mhm.
don't get it. That was a whole just for us, and to be a black label. How many times I've been cursed at as N lover, N word lover, yelled at, as well
Yeah.
as Jew hater. Oh, you have no idea. I know
Wow.
all about it. The mafia used to come. The mafia controlled all the jukeboxes. They were the most racist of anyone. They would use the N word, every other word. They'd come to buy. They controlled the jukeboxes. We sell them for cash, 45s, and then they would service all the jukeboxes in the black neighborhood.
Wow.
Those are
Do
the
you think?
experiences that I've had in the birth of the whole music business that I want to talk to people like you, but I'm going to try to document them on that channel.
Yeah.
So I think that I mean, let me ask you, you've been in this a long time. You've got your whole internet thing. Am I valid? Is my thinking valid? Are they
It's
interesting?
absolutely valid. That's why I'm talking to you,
No,
Marshall,
I know
because I
you,
want to
but
hear.
are music lovers interested in those kind of folk tales of
Absolutely.
what's touring with the Rolling Stones on the inside, the real story? Are they
Yeah.
interested?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me tell you a statistic. I just read it this morning. 67% of the baby boomers are active watchers of YouTube. So you're
Yeah,
right where you need to be. You're right
I
where you
love
need to be.
YouTube personally myself. It's
Yeah.
great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm curious on your channel, do you know yet which episode, which video
Yeah.
is your
Richard,
biggest draw?
Chuck Berry. The biggest we had, Chuck Berry videos are the biggest by
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
And one song, which I recorded on that album, I did it because one song called Help Me,
Hmm.
which was a Sonny Boy Williamson song, it was the most listened to by far. And the data is, if Richard, you should really talk to Richard because he's a data freak. He goes on every night. We know that it's mostly males over 45 years old. But
Hmm.
then we had like this album I made called New Moves, which is out now on my label's called CZYZ. That's the original Chess name. So
Right.
there was a cut called High Temperature. And we wanted to use that because of global warming, what's happening, And it's a
Hmm.
unique cut. It's not blues, it's not rock, it's nothing you could tell me. You could hear it. I feel I'm going to push it for an advertising convention. I've just been too lazy because it's so natural for what's going on with the climate. But my friend Richard, we're analyzing how do we promote TikTok is for kids, 30 seconds. So he did some 30 shorts and real 30-second videos. And I think we had 16,000 views on TikTok of young people, mostly
Yep.
girls. That cut was they relate high temperature to being hot girl, hot looking.
Right.
So I don't know. It's a really interesting thing what's going on. It's we do know the data. We're following it closely. We are, but
Hmm.
it's really interesting. But we're trying to build it now. We've never promoted it. We just started the store in time for Christmas. I've designed.
No.
I'm having fun. I did this T-shirt, and the best is I'm going to show you right on the camera. Maybe
All right.
go online. It's Chess Tribute Channel. Check this. Could you get that? It's a coffee mug, and it's
Oh,
a picture of my
I gotta
father.
get
Right, you
one.
see my father and my uncle, and
Yep.
this side says the Chess Brothers, the original Blues Brothers, because they are.
Oh, wow.
That's where the Blues Brothers got the hat from. You see it on my uncle?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
They were from Chicago, those guys. That's where they got it from. So
I'm
that
gonna.
that's
I
a
have a
highlight.
mug. I have a mug collection. I sometimes post pictures with me and my mug and drink. I got to get one of those. I have one from Muscle Shoals and the Rock and Roll Hall of
No,
Fame.
send me your address. Send me your address. I'll send you one.
Oh, I appreciate that. That'd
As
be
a Christmas.
very.
Yeah, just get people. No, I want to promote the channel. I want them to go to the shop. I want to sell 1,000 of these for Christmas, so they see my father and uncle when they lift that cup.
When you have been doing all these videos, have there been any forgotten memories that once you started
Oh
looking at all
my
this, you go, "Oh
God,
my
you have
gosh, I forgot all
no
about
idea.
this."
Of course, I have a problem with that. No, at first, I started doing all these interviews and videos and working on it, and then because I've spent like since I really left the Rolling Stones and retired, let's say in the last 10 years since I sold my business, I hate to say I mean, if you wanted to be in India, you would say I'm preparing for death. And I don't mean it in a negative way, but I
No, I
walk around
understand.
the woods and I'm trying to, right now I'm wearing my Chess Records costume for you. But I understand. I'm a psychedelic guy. Man, I had a psychedelic record label. I took acid a lot of times. I know that this is just a costume, and underneath there's something else happening, which I
Yeah.
hope to find out. Maybe in the near future. I hope I find out. I hope I'm right. But I got upset because I kept getting my memories, and all I was thinking about was my past, laying in bed because I was refreshing it. And because of YouTube and because of this back surgery, I wake up every 2 hours to take a pill or walk around something. I can't lay prone. I have this fusion and my nerves are all screwed up, which is
Yeah.
fine. I actually I learned how to live with it, so it's not a nightmare. But I'm watching YouTube a lot. Every spiritual guy I've ever listened to with the whole 60s trip. And I this guy Alan Baba Ramdas, that guy Allen Ginsberg. I'm watching these videos, and he talks about a similar situation. How it wasn't about music, but it was about how he's this young girl and meditating, and then he would go back. He'd see he'd have problems, want to get pulled back to his other life. He'd see a young, good-looking monk, and he would see he said, I think sexual thoughts. And he was saying he went to the big master, the reincarnated guy. And the guy said, of course, if you're doing that. He said, the secret is it. He said, it's like a television. Learn how to switch channels, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I've been practicing. And I really have really done very well. I mean, being able to like get off the phone with you and take my dog, and in a half hour, I'm back listening to the birds. But
Yeah.
so I'm using it now. And now when I wear the costume, I'm better. I know I'm wearing it. I'm going to give you exactly what you want. You don't want to hear my walking around the woods shit. You got to use it.
Hey,
You
I
know?
want the whole package, man, because
No,
that's who you
that's
are,
another
you know?
podcast. You know, you know, is that spiritual like guy Alan Watts said, if you really want to learn out who you are, you walk around the woods by yourself, alone without talking and just listen. And if you're lucky, you'll see who you really are.
Yeah.
It falls away. The costume falls away.
Hey, I wanted to ask you about an album that you put out called The Chess Project. Yeah, I mean, you got a
That's
Rolling
the album
Stone
I'm talking
background
about.
guy.
Yeah, man, the chess
Yeah,
project.
you got
I got
Bernard
one right
Fowler
here.
on it.
There it is.
Yeah. I've interviewed Bernard, I guess maybe
Bernard's a
3
fabulous
times.
singer. Yeah,
He
Bernard and all
really
the
is.
players. Well, the idea came from Keith LeBlanc, the drummer. So
Right.
what happened? We had done back 15 years ago. He started building this. He's getting old. He does session work, like he did
Right.
all of Seal's albums in England, things like that. So he says to me, and I became good friends with him. And he said, Marshall, I want to build finish a studio in my house. So I have a little studio to make money when I get older. My wife's got a beauty shop in the house. I've got this. I said, okay, can you loan me this money and not to buy this equipment? He said, now I can buy this. It's so much cheaper. So I did. And we decided to do an album, um, not called New Moves. It was called Chess Moves. But we wanted to use Muddy and Wolf, all the original vocals from the old recordings with Keith's tracks that he would make.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Universal in California, and that they refused me permission. They were really, they just would try to, whatever it was. It wasn't a pleasant. The guy had to deal with him like me. That was the real problem. So on another trip, I go to England, and the guy running England there is Alistair, the guy who runs Universal now, the guy who runs it in America, but he was running England then. So I thought I call up. Will you have a meeting with me? And he says, yeah. I says, I'll come out. I want to meet you. He was like a Stones groupie. So I want to meet you, Marshall. Come up, even for 10 minutes. So me and my son went up, and I said, will you give me permission from England? And he did. So we made the album, and it was out about 6 weeks, and Universal in California pulled it. They were pissed at me for going over their head. That you could hear it on the channel. Look out, it's called Chess Moves. That's the original from years ago. So now Keith calls me again. I had just had the surgery, COVID. We're all home with COVID. I can't walk. He says, man, we can make this album. I wanted to be busy. Okay. So I'm missing part of the story. See, I must be getting old, man. Before what I just told you, we had a rough demo of that album using Muddy's voice and Wolf's voice. And I was on a publishing trip to England. And I was at BMG, which is a record label and a music publisher in London.
Right.
And I played it for the label head, Alistair. And Alistair Newbury is his name. I played it for Alistair, and he said, I want to buy that. It's great. Actually, he heard that song, High Temperatures. That could be a big advertising. I said, you can buy it. He said, let's make a deal. So we made a deal. It was a strange deal. I got Bernard, Keith, and Skip, the guitar player, the main people. Skip McDonald was known as Little Axe in England on New World Records. He was like his own little star, the whole other name. I got them each $5,000, and I got me $100,000 advertising budget. I could have some fun that I could tell how to do it. This was my fun. So we all agreed, and we made the record. And then Mick Jagger even brought him to New York for his charity. They played one gig, and it was horrible because the songs are really remixes recorded live, not remixes. So you have to rehearse to learn how to play them. They're not normal, and they screwed it. But they mixed the mixed charity wasn't fabulous. But everyone went. They made money, and so that was it. So then COVID comes, and Brexit in England, where they shut everything down. So Keith calls me. He says, he said, what's going to happen with that record? I said, why don't I call up Alistair, since they're closed, their offices are closed. Let me call him, see if he'll sell it back for the $15,000, and we'll continue. We'll finish it, because we were supposed to finish it for him, but it went on hold because of the Brexit and COVID.
Right.
So I call up Alistair. He says, Marshall, not only that, you can have it back for free. Just get a lawyer to make a release, because they were already backed up years by having no releases. They knew it. It would be sitting around, So, and he was my friend. Keith, all these guys he's played with, Eric Gales, these fabulous musicians using.
He's amazing.
Yeah, Eric's amazing. I used the premise of what made Chess Records so great were all the great players behind those guards. There was we were very, very careful and superstitious about our sidemen. That was a crucial element with all those hits. And our chess rhythm sections were very crucial. And Keith put together this fabulous, and everyone did it from home. Like Alan Glenn, the harmonicas, was the Kinks harmonica player,
Wow.
He's an old guy. He wouldn't even take PayPal. I had to get a special check to send them, Where do you, man? But everyone did. I paid everyone with PayPal. We did it all. The only problem we had was on I wanted to do that Help Me, that song I told you, which was the biggest one.
Right.
I wanted Bernard to do it, and he wasn't doing it. Bernard's going to hate me for telling this story, but he just wasn't doing it because he was producing himself in LA. That's how we let people do it, with Keith on one end, but not in the same room. So he wasn't doing it the way I felt that he could do it. It was just the way it was bothering me, and we felt it could be the strongest song, and I still do. I felt something in that lyric made it the most listened to. Help me, I can't do it all by myself. It's such a human lyric that maybe that's it. Would be great for advertising or a Scorsese film. I don't know. I got to think, I got to make this cut right. So Bernard's in LA, and I find out that for $6,000 for like an hour, for like 2 hours, I can do I could be in the studio virtually. I never had done that yet, So it was magic. So here we are, man. I'm sitting where I am at night, 10 at night, smoking a joint, And then the screen goes on. There's Bernard. He's in the studio with the mic. The next shot is the board. So I'm actually sitting like I would if I was there. And then Keith is in a window on the right in Connecticut.
Wow.
And this is a sad story. I see glowing of a cigarette. And after I said, "You smoke still?" He died of lung cancer 3 months ago. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow.
I never knew he smoked because we were all doing video relationship for 10 years, you know.
Yeah.
I never knew until I saw the glowing coals, you know.
Oh wow.
Aside from that, yeah, we had to stop the promotion. They were going to go. Bernard may take it live. He told me he might put a band together this summer, you know. But so anyway, getting back to Bernard, I could tell Bernard does not like to be produced. He's a very he's egocentric. I get it. I've worked with artists like him a lot. So I don't know what to do. I said, "Okay, let me tell you a story, Bernard." What's this? I said, "Let me tell you a Rolling Stone story." I said, "It's about Moonlight Mile." And we were at Stargroves. This is another folk tale, Chestertown people. We're recording Stargroves. Stargroves was Mick's mansion in the countryside in England. Mm-hmm. We had built a mobile recording truck where we recorded the Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street album in France. I was in the yard in the front, in the mobile truck, about full moon, 2 a.m. Mick is inside the house recording. That's, we're out it's very remote. And we're doing the vocal of Moonlight Mile. Now, I'll tell you, I learned something from my father. I have to go back. The first session I ever produced, I was maybe 19. And my dad said, "Go up. I got to go to the bank. Phil's not here. Go up to the studio." I was shitting in my pants. He said, "What do I do?" "Just tell him, take another one. Take another one. Just take another one. They'll listen to you. You're the boss's son. Take another one." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "If you don't keep them working, they're going to sit around bullshitting about women, clubs. Don't tell them, take another one. And eventually one might be a motherfucker. One may be great." So that's what I did. So I told Bernard, I said, "My dad told me that. I remember that." So I got the courage to tell Mick, "Take another one. You can do that better. Come on, man, you're here. It's midnight. The moon's out. It's Moonlight Mile. Take another one." And he did about 7 more, and we got it. That was the one. And so when I told that to Bernard, he went in and did it so perfectly. And he weeks later, he said, "You can do that with me anytime." Help him get it. I used one of my father's. That's the shit my father taught me. He used to make Etta James cry on purpose during recording to get certain emotion in the voice.
Yeah.
He knew how to do it. He was like Alf, who was that? Like a famous Alfred Hitchcock, like a famous movie director. He knew how to get stuff from an album. That's why I'm so upset with the money, with the burning of those tapes. You should hear it with Little Walter. I've got some on an album, some on here. You should hear it with Little Walter. And Sonny Boy Williamson, I did that. I put that on a Sonny Boy Williamson album. And the Real Folk Blues, Sonny Boy Williamson, I put that interplay. And a disc jockey in Pittsburgh got fired named Porky Chedwick when I was out promoting that album, because there's a part in that album, it's a song called Little Village. And my father and Sonny Boy are arguing. And Sonny Boy says, "I know what a little village is, motherfucker." It's back and forth, and he does it. And so this guy, Porky, puts the record on and he goes to get a drink of water or pee, go to the toilet, and that goes over the air, the cursing. And he got fired because of that. He got in a lot of trouble. Yeah. So I've used those cuts because they're so amazing to hear. That's why I was so upset when they were burnt up.
Wow, I can imagine. I got to tell you my Bernard story. I've interviewed him, like I said, 3 times. I think the second time I interviewed him was in Atlanta. They were going to perform at Georgia Tech, and I met him at the Ritz-Carlton there in Atlanta, or just a suburb of Atlanta. And we go along. I got my picture taken with him. My cousin, who turned me on to the Stones, he's recording all this. And I said, "I got something for you, Bernard." He goes, "What's that?" Now, keep in mind, this was after Bobby Keys died. the
Yeah, that
sax
was a
player.
shame. Yeah.
And what had happened is before I interviewed Bernard the first time, I had just interviewed Bobby for his book. So I shot him a note and said, "Hey, can I get some comments from you? I'm going to be talking to Bernard." And so I got in those days I wasn't doing YouTube yet. And so I went into my audio collection, found where found that audio where he was talking about Bernard, put it on a flash drive for him, and played it for him during the interview. And he was just sitting there shaking his head like, wow. I mean, because it's like a voice from the grave. And then he
Yeah,
tells
tell
us,
me, man. I knew
then
Bobby
he
so
tells,
well. What a drag.
he tells a story about, he goes, Bobby always had the best weed. He goes, one time he was smoking too much. We had to get big old fans to blow it out of the hotel room, So
Bobby, I think Bobby liked that tequila and orange juice sunrise drink. What's it called? Tequila sunrise.
yeah.
Tequila with a red liquor on the bottom. And when we did it on the Stones tour, one of those 70 years, Truman Capote, the author, he fell in love with Bobby Keys. And they hated it so much. We had him on the tour for this one leg in New Orleans. They were so high and stoned, everyone peed in front of his hotel door, Truman Capote's door. Late at night, drunk and high. Yeah. Crazy rock and roll stories. Throwing TVs
Yeah.
out the window and it's crazy stuff. It was crazy stuff. But some great music, man. That's the thing. That was the thing that I lived with Keith, in Keith's house and sitting around. I mean, I knew great artists, but I never lived with them or sat around. He'd sit around every night with his guitar or piano, but look, just sitting in that living room, and he just developed these songs. Mick too, both were very just constantly writing. A lot of times they would both write songs, and you wouldn't know when they combined them. They decided to make them all Keith Richards, Keith and Mick songs, but they don't all write them sitting next to each other.
Right, right. They just kind of put
easier.
the two pieces
it's
together.
easier than arguing. This line is mine. That line is
right.
That's the part. Yeah.
Well, gosh, Marshall, this has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to get this interview out there, and I've already shared a link to your YouTube channel on my personal channel, and I'm looking forward to hearing a lot more from there.
And I'm around. Winter here. This is in another month. I'm going to be inside a lot because I can't afford falling. I really only have one. My left leg is really only bone. I lost complete muscle when the nerve went. So
wow.
No, but I've learned. I exercised. So my right leg is Arnold Schwarzenegger. My left leg's Tiny Tim. It's the cane. I don't need a cane yet. But I'm getting in the winter. I'm not adverse to telling you some stories. I'm promoting the channel, and I'm working on another record for truck drivers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Keith, we made these tracks, and I got this idea. What are these guys who drive interstates? Of music that create, they're all instrumentals, produced by Keith, who died. But we've mastered it. We actually have it done, and I'm just trying to find a way to market it. I've been going to truck stops because they still like CDs. Those truckers, a lot of them. But they stream too. So I'm thinking
let's put our heads together on something, because I'll tell you three things I've done on my website, not on the YouTube channel, on the website. I started off where I was featuring photos every month by Ringo Starr's photographer, Rob Shanahan. Great guy.
Yeah, I've heard
has
that.
Shot all sorts of people. He knew Charlie well, and being Ringo's official photographer, he brought the two together with Jim Keltner and all that. But featured him every month, and then after that, I waited a few years, and then I brought in. I had a good relationship, still do, with the photographer Bob Gruen, who shot all the John and Yoko photos and all
I
that.
remember that name too. I've heard that name too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, the John Lennon postage stamp is mirrored off of one of his photos,
Oh,
and then after that, I was featuring for a few months Robert Heimel. He did a lot of the albums for I think it might have been Epic or somebody. I forget which one, but he did the Jim Croce albums, The Doors, all that. Super guy, good friend of mine. What would be fun, let's put our heads together on it. I wouldn't mind doing little blurbs, not to take away from your channel, but if we did like just little snippets and then point them to yours.
yeah. Look, anything creative, I'm willing to try and see if it gets results. You know, that that's why I'm keeping young. You know, I got most of my old friends are dead, man. I've got two of my real old buddies left. One doesn't know who he is, unfortunately. He's walking around space, and the other one, all he does is look at his phone of old photos all day and smoke cigars.
Yeah,
he's 85, but he just lives in the past. I'm still trying to do present. I'm getting off. You know, I'm still.
Well, my dad is 88, and I'm his mind is slipping now, so I take care of him, and so I'm in a lot. Let's
I know.
Here's what I'll.
Right.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
go ahead.
my wife's mind slipping. I'm doing this similar.
Well, my what I'll do, you told me to get my address to you.
Yeah, I want your address. I want to send you that cup.
Okay, I'll send that to. I can send it through Mark, or if you give me your address, I'll send it to you directly.
Mark has everything. Yeah.
Okay, I'll route it to him, and then we can let's just kind of brainstorm how we could piece it together, and then I'll be more than happy to feature it, because I think what you're doing is important, not just fun, but important.
I think it is too. I mean, I think even if I did it for my grandchildren, I see I think there's something in it, because the older you get sort of wiser, and you see how the real past gets distorted so much that it's difficult, you know?
You can take your audios that you're doing with this and edit it together and have an audio book made for sale.
That's definitely a thought, all these tales and stories. Yeah, we thought about it. So how long has your channel been up?
The channel's been up. It's wrapping up its second year. My website, I'm wrapping up. Well, in April of next year, I'll wrap up 16 years.
And how many do you have an idea of what kind of, how many people have gone on it, or you get that?
It varies. It varies. I mean, of course, they look at subscriptions and likes and all this.
I'm just curious, just to compare how, because it's so difficult. We've had 500,000 viewers, but you don't get that many subscribers. They view over and over.
Right. Well, here's what I would suggest doing in your editing process, and maybe record a standard thing and then have it be on every one of your videos. Ask them to subscribe. That's what I have to do.
That. We are. That's a good idea.
And it's just, if you don't ask, they don't. I mean,
we do,
in our generation.
You're right. It's a good idea to ask them on every one.
At the end of my intros to every interview, and I'll do it with yours too when it posts, I just say, hey, would you please like it and subscribe? It won't cost you a dime.
I know. I like that, because if it's on every video, it's much better than if it's on another spot. The second they're done playing, they just hit it. Yeah.
That's right. So, but I'll send Mark a note.
And Mark, and get me your address, and let's see what happens, man. It was a pleasure talking to you. I mean, I love what you're doing too. So, what can I say?
Well, this will be fun, and if I can help you, that's what I want to do. And because if you didn't do what you did, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So
everyone says that, but like I said, I did it by accident. That's the funny part, the biggest joke. I did it you know why I did it? This is the thing. I did it so my dad would say, "You did it. You want to please your dad." It was a strict Freudian thing. All I ever wanted to do was my dad. My dad really was terrible, because he was not raised by a father. My grandfather was in America, so my father was raised by a sister till he was like 8 years old. He missed that early thing. He did not. Yeah. Our relationship was, like I told you, watch me. But my father only gave me one real compliment in my whole life. I was desperate. You know what he told me? He said, I'll tell you, I finally trust you're going to make it. You'll be able to make it in life. That was it.
Wow. Wow.
Which was a big one for him.
It was a big one. Yeah.
You know, but he never
kinda,
said the record, you know, when Rotary Connection sold 500,000, he never said, oh man, great. Never, never.
wow.
That was a normal thing. That was, you know, to be raised in it, that he thought, well, how could you not? Being raised in it around what you've been around. He expected me to make stuff that sold, you know, like he did.
Yep.
And what they don't know about my father, and I've just done the most emotional 45-minute rap about my father that's going to go on the channel, is about WVON. You know about that? What that is?
Yeah.
Voice of the Negro.
Voice of the Negro.
Yeah, we revolutionized, not me, but my father. They revolutionized black radio. Obama wouldn't have been president without WVON. The whole civil rights movement in Chicago. You know, my dad paid the water to the march in Selma. I have that on video to the Reverend, the check for Martin Luther King.
Yep.
So that, you know what my dad's thing was that no one knows that I'm telling. He felt, and he was the man of the year in Chicago. He felt, wow, he felt he was really obligated to pay back to black culture, to black people. What they gave. Our life was great, my family, because of black music. He knew that. It wasn't like he knew it. He liked giving back with that radio station. I never knew that about him. We started the station to play Chess Records as a tester. But within a year, he got sucked in, giving 1,000 baskets at Christmas. He was like, wow, I'm doing. He never was a philanthropist. You know, he got a taste of that he could do good in a big way. And it blew him away. That's why I wanted to sell Chess Records. He wanted to go. We were going to start Black TV. That's why he sold WVON. Then he died before at 52. It would have been 10 years before 10 years before BET. He knew that was so strong for black culture. He would, I can send you. There's an hour radio show after my dad died of all these people who called in, all these black people saying he was the blackest white man you ever met. You know, because he was an immigrant and he had no prejudice. You know, he got, you know, and he was able to see how what black people couldn't do at that era, and was that middleman. But you know, it gave us a great life, and then he wanted to give. You know, he didn't know he was going to be that way. Like I didn't know I would make records that Mick Jagger would buy and make the Rolling Stones. People say, "Oh," I said, "That's bullshit." I tell that I did it because I wanted my dad to tell me, you know, by luck. That's how things happen, I think.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
How many of these Olympic runners or baseball players are doing it for their dad who was with them when they were growing up?
That's right. Just looking for approval.
You see it in the World Series. There's always the dad or mother sitting there, you know? Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, that's the truth. But I'm glad that I did it. I've had a fabulous, charmed life, you know. I have. I've never felt I worked. How did I end up with the Rolling Stones? And I'm in the forest. Somehow somehow I lucked out. Even the drug addiction was a very positive thing, because when you beat that, it's like climbing Mount Everest. You know, it's a tool, man. That's like not an easy thing. I mean, to be able to understand. But my final word is, after all this LSD psychotherapy, all that shit I did, the reason that I loved being taking hard drugs was, guess what? That Chess Records was sold. It all went down. I buried that. Even Even though, and I never got the money. I was going to start my own label. When my dad decided to sell it, I was supposed to get $1 million, and he died without a will. I got nothing, and I was going to. And Bob Skaggs was going to be the first artist on my label. So I ended. So when Bob Krasno called me about, he heard the Rolling Stones needed a new thing, and do it with him. Bob Krasno owned a label called Blue Thumb. He then became the president of Elektra. That's how it started. He called me and said, I heard the Stones they're done with their manager. They want a new label. Let's do something together. And I said, I can't do it. Our egos are too big. We fight. It would be horrible. But he gave me Mick's phone number. And I called Mick up at home, and Mick said, oh, Marshall, I tell you, they treated me like, I wasn't a groupie. And they treated me, it was just a great relationship for both ends. We both got what we wanted, and they got the best record man, and I got the best rock and roll band, to do it with.
Very cool.
And Mick said, he said, I'd come to Chicago, but I just got my passport taken for having amphetamines in my suitcase at the airport.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember
2 weeks
that.
later, I was in London. That's how that started. And I made my deal with Mick while he danced the Black Snake Blues Clifton Chenier in front of me. And then I walked over to Keith's house a block away, and he was at a piano, a yellow, psychedelic painted grand piano with Graham Parsons writing some country monster together, sitting there. And Keith looked at me and said, man, you've changed. Because in Chicago, I was a sharp-dressed man. Like, I had to be a suit, tie. Yeah. By the time I was with the Stones, I was with jeans, beard and jeans. He said, what happened? You look All right, that's my last story, man.
All right, man. Well, I'm serious. I'll wrap the address to you, but let's really I would like to do something. I don't want to take away your stories. I want to create little vignettes to where people will want to click over and go to your channel.
I was trying to do that. I was trying to do that today. I mean, giving them
and you are
back.
so.
I did one interview, and I saw that, I'm trying to find a way to get people to go to the channel. I was trying to test it with you by keep telling those stories. This was a test.
Well, I love it, and that's what it's all about. So we'll
definitely people can get the minutia. They can read books. They want to know what year, but no one knows the inside shit, man. No one does anymore. No.
Well, we're going to make something work, and we'll make it fun, and it'd be an honor to work with you. So we'll have some fun with this,
We'll try it. Let's see. Like I say, I'm an old man. I get ornery sometimes, but usually over the winter I'll have a lot of bored time. We could probably.
Well, guess what? I'll learn from you too. So there you go.
Well, I'll learn from you. Come on.
All right. Good deal. Well, Marshall, we'll be touching soon, and be safe. Okay.
Good talking to you. I enjoyed it, man. I can tell when I run at the mouth so much that someone says, no, it's because you're a sponge. You see, and when I feel the sponge, I can't stop.
Good.
Because and I'm proud and impressed that you are interested in my family shit, man.
Yep. Well, I want to hear lots more, so we'll be working together on this. It'll be a blast.
You take care.
This show was edited and produced by Mike McClellan. The original music, Roll the Dice, was written and produced by Quentin Hope. And Randy Patterson was your host and executive producer.